Welcome to Everyone Deserves Sunshine. I'm Diana.
And I'm Anusha. We're the girls in the crease. So last week, we did say we were going to talk about hockey, but it's Mother's Day this week. Yeah, I remember this on about Friday.
So we're switching it up because, as many of you have learned, we don't really care about rules anymore, ever,
No rules.
really. Yeah, so we're just
Why
going to
start?
surprise. This episode is not about hockey. It's about moms.
But we will talk about hockey next week, so stay tuned for our hockey aficionados, of which I am now one, Diana, as you know.
You really, really are. This girl is texting me all week long about the Flyers, and she's really into it. You're really into it.
I'm very into it. I've looked up a lot of stuff, things like the Flyers power play statistics. Fun fact, they are not very good at power plays, which was demonstrated last game. Diana's shaking.
Yeah, I don't know what a power play is, but in my mind, I am very good at it. So,
Yes, you are.
But anyway, okay. So Mother's Day episode, Anusha and I would like to wish everyone listening a happy Mother's Day. We know that this holiday can hold a lot of different emotions for different people. For some, it's joyful and celebratory. For others, it could feel complicated and painful and bittersweet and perhaps even very heavy. So before we begin, we just want to acknowledge all of that. We're thinking about people celebrating Mother's Day. We're also thinking about people who are grieving the mothers they have lost, people who have perhaps strained or complicated relationships with their moms, people who had to grow up without moms or without the nurturing of a mom that they deserved, people who long to be mothers, who wanted children and couldn't have them, people who are mothers in every way except biologically, right? And then all those people carrying the invisible grief today while everyone around them may be posting, flowers and brunch photos. So we just wanted to say that.
Yeah, motherhood is complicated, to say the least. I constantly feel this way. It has given both a sense of understanding of my own mother, but also sometimes you fall into the cycle of acting like your own mom, but also being like, I don't want to be like my mom. So it's very complicated. Very complicated.
For sure.
Thanks for saying
Anusha.
that, Diana. I think
Yeah,
that's
listen,
really
and I
important.
think that's part of why we wanted to do this episode, right? Especially this weekend, because you and I are moms and we have moms and we both have different relationships with our moms. My mom, we actually just came back from going shopping together. And she kept on trying to buy me a gift for Mother's Day. And I'm like, I'm not your mother. She's like, but I still want to get you something. I'm like, I don't think you understand how Mother's Day works. So anyway, happy Mother's Day to all. Speaking of, do you have any plans this weekend for Mother's Day?
Yeah, actually, the kids are taking me to their favorite restaurant.
Wait, their favorite restaurant?
Of course. It's called Select Pizza. It's a very strange restaurant. The menu could only be described as
everything.
Exactly. There is no rhyme or reason. It is their favorite place. And so that's what I'm doing. What are you doing?
I don't have any plans. I always say to my family to leave me alone for Mother's Day and let me just be. If I want to spend all weekend in bed, that is my prerogative. The only plan is that I want them to do is to feed me. So I need breakfast, lunch, and dinner served on Mother's Day. And I don't want to think about it. I don't want to be like, this is what I want. I don't want my husband to come and say, what would you like to eat? That is not something I
That's
want
not a
to do.
gift.
I'm
That's
not,
not a
no,
gift.
it is not a gift. I want them to know me well enough by now that they know what I would enjoy in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. So next week, I will tell you if my Mother's Day was good or bad.
So you just want them to, someone to take away the mental load, which
Correct.
I completely understand. I don't think that will happen tomorrow for me personally. I'm sure I will be rounding up my little kids to try to make this brunch reservation on time with probably
you actually have a
lot.
reservation.
Yes,
Okay,
because
good
it's
for
Mother's
you.
Day.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
it will not be mental load free.
As we were going to bed yesterday, I said it's Mother's Day weekend. That means I am unavailable for emotional regulation or for discussion of any kind, anything that requires emotional labor. I'm unavailable for all of those things this very weekend.
You are out of office.
I am mentally and emotionally out of office. And for all the moms out there, I hope the same for you.
Yes. The greatest gift of all.
The greatest gift of all. Okay, Anusha, let's get into our conversation about the moms of Heated Rivalry.
Yes, yes. This is episode 17, Moms.
Well, I think we need to give another disclaimer. It's not a happy episode because moms of Heated Rivalry,
Mm,
and that is a very complicated and kind of sad
yeah.
discussion. So if you're not in the mental state of listening to today's episode, we get it. We forgive you, but perhaps do listen to it eventually.
Like,
So,
maybe when you have more fortitude,
right, exactly. Yeah. So
Exactly.
I think it is important to give that disclaimer because we're going to jump into Ilya's mom right now.
Mom in absentia is what I call
Yeah.
it, because you
Yeah.
feel her presence as much as her absence, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And like motherhood and the absence of it shapes people in profound ways, sometimes beautifully and sometimes very painfully. And actually, most of the time, like a mix of both. One of the most, interesting and heartbreaking things about Ilya's character is how deeply he has been shaped by the loss of his mom, which we don't really even know until the very end of the show, right? We know that she's not there, but we don't know why she's not there.
Mm,
And so she's definitely not present, but her absence echoes through everything
mhm,
he does and his thoughts, the way he loves, the way he performs, even the way he like feels abandonment and then the way he turns himself into someone unforgettable so no one leaves him
mm.
again.
And
So,
also the way he protects his internal self
yeah.
from hurt, this, like, fortress of emotions that he
Mhm.
will not open.
And I think that's what makes him such a, like, powerful character
Mhm,
too. His story, in some way, is about, like, the lifelong impact of losing your mother's love
mm,
at such a young, delicate age, right?
yeah,
Because, like, mothers are, for many of us, are your first emotional home.
mhm,
Um, frequently the people who, like, teach you safety and comfort and, like, regulation like, emotional
mhm,
regulation, right? And, like, unconditional love and attachment. I think especially and, especially for boys right before adolescence, right? Like he lost his mom when he was 12. Mothers are often the last like place softness is still
mhm,
permitted before the world starts like demanding them to perform, this like masculinity and
mhm,
toughness before the world tells you that like vulnerability is not okay, like that it's
mhm,
dangerous. Like, how Ilya, like anytime he becomes vulnerable and like he starts crying, he always apologizes for it, right?
mhm,
Because like the world told him that's not cool. Like you don't cry.
mhm,
Men don't cry. Boys don't cry, right? And so he loses his mom right as he reaches the age when he needs her most.
mhm,
And, around like 12 is when like boys, between like, I would say like 11 and 13, that's when like many of them start hitting puberty. It's like one of the most emotionally vulnerable, developmental periods of their time. And while at the same time, they're also being taught to hide their vulnerability. It's a
mhm,
very vulnerable time, but you're not allowed to show it,
mhm.
right?
It's like
And so that's when you're also starting to form an identity, who you are as a person. I could see it with my son who is 12 right now. So it's like
mm,
very, it's in my face, like I could see him and I could
yeah,
see what the world is telling him and I could see what I'm telling him. And those two things are often incongruent. And no matter how hard I'm just like, no, like you're going to remain soft. You are going to remain the sweet boy and you're going to treat people the same way and you're going to let your other friends know that it's okay to be the sweet boy. I can tell that the world's like, no, you can't be that way. They're telling him like what kind of a man you're supposed to be at this
mhm,
age. And for Ilya, I don't want to like say it, but like for Ilya, like he doesn't have me, who's like telling him like, no, it's okay
mm,
for you to be vulnerable, right? In fact, that he has like a dad who's even
the
telling him like
opposite.
worse, like the opposite. It's also the time when like they start to feel a lot of shame about who they are and what they are and what they
Mhm,
might feel. And for Ilya, the person who could have helped that, is gone. He behaves and acts like someone who learned very young that love could just poof and like
mhm,
disappear. Losing maternal safety emotionally is definitely that's what makes Ilya who he is. But I think that's part of the reasons why I feel for him so much because like the children don't stop needing that love
mhm,
just because the mom is not there. They
mhm,
they just like adapt to the absence of it,
Mhm.
and they build their personalities and identity around it, and we've talked about identity a lot, and he becomes, like, funny and charismatic and successful, mostly because they learn to rely on themselves more than anyone else, and
Mhm.
Ilya had to because he's not relying on his dad for anything.
Mhm.
When his needs are not met, he meets his own needs, basically, like, he's forced to do that.
You were right. In this show, you don't really hear very much about Ilya's mom until
Mhm,
the end, but there
mhm.
is that moment, and I didn't catch it until rewatches, where he says, "This is for you, mama," when he wins the
Mhm.
cup. You sense, "Oh my god, he's been thinking about her and winning
Mhm.
this for her
Yeah.
this whole time." At least that was the sense I got because it was such an uninhibited moment of, like,
Mhm,
joy, and the first
mhm.
thing he says is, "This is for you, mama." Like, he doesn't
Yeah.
say, like, his dad or anything. He really just, like, says, "This is for you."
And he's crying, like, he's just screaming and crying when he says it.
And it's actually one of the first moments he's been, like, super emotional, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
unguardedly emotional, and the first thing
Mhm.
he says is his mama, and then you think about all that you've said, like, he lost her at this age of complete vulnerability. He's
Mhm.
transitioning from boyhood to the start of, the cusp of manhood. And then you realize why he is the way he is, like,
Yeah.
why he's actually so deeply caring. I've always thought, like, how did Ilya turn out to be so different from his brother?
Right.
And you realize not only has he lost his mom, he's lost the softening
Mhm.
influence that was present, and she was that. I mean, not
Yeah.
every mom is the kind of mom
Yeah.
that a child needs. That child and that mom need to fit. But
Mhm.
you could tell that for him, this was the mom that he needed. This is the influence that saved him. Actually,
Mhm. Mm.
the soft place that you're describing for your son, she was that for him. And in some ways, that fortress that he constructed around his emotions is the protective effect of his mom.
This is something I also didn't realize on my first watch, but, the hallway scene right after they have sex for the first or intercourse
Mhm.
for the first time, Shane asks him, like, "Is your family coming?" Right? They're having that Olympics conversation, and he's like, "My dad, probably. My brother, maybe." And then that's it. But Saint Shane doesn't follow up. "What about your mom?" And that's the first time you're supposed to understand that mom is not in the
Mhm.
picture for whatever reason. You don't really know. And then later in that episode, when he is with his dad, he says, "Mom's dead, remember?" And so, like, you know that she died, but you don't really have the context or,
Mhm.
did she die in childbirth? Because that is
Mhm.
also a
Right?
different
Yeah.
thing, right? Like, different effect on but 12 years old, man, that's rough, and I think that's why, like, Shane matters so much within this context too, because, he in many ways, like, gives Ilya that softness and that, like,
Mhm.
emotional safety. I would assume that like, that's what attracted Ilya to
Mhm.
Shane because he
Mhm.
saw the softness. He
Mhm.
saw the vulnerability that Shane
Mhm.
has that he tries very much to hide. Both of
Mhm.
them try very much to hide. Like, he Shane becomes, like, that place for him that is, like, his emotional anchor that he lost at such a formative age.
Mhm.
And that kind of safety could also be overwhelming, which is why he's
Mhm.
constantly, like, questioning himself, right? Like, does he like me? Does he not? I like him way more. I'm gonna end this. Like, he's always wanting to end this, mostly probably because he knows this is a bad idea in the world of hockey culture and everything else, but also possibly because he's afraid to lose another person he loves, right?
Mhm.
In that same way.
First of all, I highly doubt with the father that he has, he would have been allowed therapy or another person to process grief, to
Mhm.
process the fact that he found his mother dead. I mean, those are all,
Mhm.
like, incredible traumatic events that he probably was not allowed to process the grief of the loss, probably not allowed or given the tools to process the horror of being the one to find her. Um,
Mhm.
and so, like, he had no tools at 12 years old to figure out how to deal with the biggest grief of his life. Then you think about, of course, he's locked and tight
Right.
because not only does he have to protect himself, he also has no idea how to deal with emotional havoc and loss at all. Like you said, like
Mhm.
he doesn't know how to deal with that. at all.
No, he doesn't. And since we just did the book versus show, I have the book right
Mhm.
next to me. So I pulled up the page because the book offers a little more, right? So I just wanted
Mhm,
to read
yes.
this. Shane asked, "How did she die?" An accident, he said sardonically. He said it because that was what his father had told everyone. It was what Ilya had been told very sternly, even though he had known it wasn't true even at the age of 12. She had an accident, Ilya, you understand? Yes? An accident, Shane asked. His hand was on Ilya's arm. Yes. Ilya said with a tight, humorless smile. She accidentally swallowed a whole bottle of pills.
Mm.
Oops. He actually says oops in the
Mhm.
book, which I think is like a very, I don't know, almost like a like adds like an additional layer of sadness to that sentence, right?
It's
Um,
very dark humor, and when I
yes,
say
right.
humor,
Like
it's
oops.
because
Yeah.
he knows that's not what happened, and he's not just been told to think that, but he's also been told not to tell, like, that's the
Right.
message, right? "Don't think it, don't say anything to anybody."
Yes. Yes, and he actually says that. He said that he has never shared that with anyone before
Mhm.
I found her.
'Cause shame, there's a sense of shame around
Right,
it.
exactly, exactly. And then he said and I actually speaking of Shane becoming his emotional support human, but he says he just wanted to hold Shane close to him in this place where no one would ever find them. He wanted to stand in the spotlight of the campfire under the endless stars and feel Shane's fingers stroking his hair and not think about his horrible father or his wonderful, desperately sad mother.
There's something, like, so deeply Russian about the framing of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
You probably can speak to it, but I'm just thinking of my understanding of Russian, the great
Mhm.
Russian
Mhm.
books, and this idea that there's tragedy, like, just
Mhm.
lurking,
Yeah.
around the corner, and this wonderful, desperately sad woman who probably was so much like Ilya in the softness, and it was stamped out of her?
And another thing is that even when he had her and she was his softness, she was obviously very depressed,
Mhm,
right? So, like, he had also probably been aware of that on some level, even as a young kid. Clearly, he knew because he
mhm,
says it. She was so funny and beautiful, and she was so sad, right? So he
mhm,
knew that she was sad, and I think in some ways they were probably each other's
mhm.
safety, even when he was such a little boy, safety and vulnerability.
That's really hard for a child to hold that. It's nobody's fault. It's not,
No, of
Ilya's
course
mom's
not.
fault.
No, of
No,
course
it's just
not.
but he's a very intuitive child.
Yeah.
We talk about him being so, like, Loctite,
Yeah.
but he's so emotionally intuitive, right?
He
Like,
is,
he
yeah.
is.
It's probably because of his mom, and I had read on Threads, this was, like, months ago when,
Mhm,
the show first came out. Someone wrote this thing about, like, I bet Ilya understood Shane's panic attacks and how to regulate him because he had to deal with that with his mom. And I was like, "You assholes." Like, "Stop putting this in my head,"
right.
but maybe, like, he very keenly observes Shane and understands, like, "Uh-oh, this kid is not okay," right? And, like,
Right.
again, they were, like, 19 or something or 20 even, not even probably
Mhm,
at that time, so for a 19-year-old to, like, see another person and being like, "Oh, I think you're having
mhm,
a panic attack," like, that is very
mhm,
intuitive. And
mhm.
that's probably partly because of the influence of his mom.
Yeah, and nothing is sexier than having a panic attack during sex. 'Cause he's not just like, "Whoa, I'm outta here, dude." You know what I mean?
Right.
He could have just ran
Yeah.
out, which
No.
maybe most 19-year-olds would do, but
Right,
he stayed back
exactly.
to
For
kind
a
of
hookup? Yeah, I'm not dealing with
yeah,
this shit. I'm trying to get laid, dude. Like,
yeah,
I'm
you're
not gonna
like,
deal with
"Too
your
much."
emotional instability. Like, come on.
S Exactly, strings. All the
Right.
strings, even then,
And
right?
here we go. We
But
are
it
back to the strings.
back to the strings. But it just shows you how emotionally intuitive he is, even though he holds his emotions so close, which is really, Ilya, I think that's kind of unfair. You're a deep feeler. I hope as the show moves forward that we get to see more of that emotional inside be shared with Shane.
Yeah, I mean, we don't spoil here, but the long
No.
game does talk a lot about that,
Mm,
about his
yeah.
mom and the absence of her and how Ilya processes that. So,
Yeah.
which I'm so grateful actually because it's such a huge part of him that, obviously we don't get it in this book, but I'm interested to see how it will play out
Me
in the show
too.
because I know what it is, I know how it's written, but I'm interested to see how it's gonna be, and we trust Jacob Tierney with everything, so I'm sure he will do it more than enough justice. I think it's a really beautiful way to frame this Mother's Day episode, right?
Mhm.
Beautiful and sad, obviously,
Mhm.
in that motherhood in Ilya's story exists less as a character and more as a significant missing piece,
Yep.
like a ghost around which his entire emotional
Mm.
life forms.
Yeah.
And his mother's love matters because losing her and losing it changes the entire trajectory of,
Mhm.
who he is forever.
That's a beautiful way to say it. This ghost that haunts him, like a
Mhm.
friendly but desperately sad ghost that haunts him.
Mhm. So, yeah, let's talk about Yuna, perhaps? I
Yeah,
mean, we've
let's
talked
talk
about her
about
a
Yuna.
lot, but I think
Yeah,
there's still enough left to say. So,
yeah.
and
There's a lot to
I
say
will
about
pass the
Yuna.
baton to you because clearly you're so much more in love with Shane Hollander than I am.
Okay, so I have to say, when we were sketching out this episode, I was like, "Of course you'll do Ilya," but, I think there's 2 cultural elements that are significant because your heritage really speaks to the way Ilya processed grief
Right,
and his
right.
loss of a mother. I have to say, I'm not culturally from the same background as Yuna. She's East Asian, I'm South Asian. But there's so much of her that I relate to as the kind of mom she is and the
Mhm.
kind of heritage and background she came from. If I had to pick a character who was most similar to me, it would be Yuna. I feel a lot of those pressures she feels to be
Mhm.
this model minority clearly from her background and the way she is. She's the mom that is the force, right, in the
Mhm.
family, even though David was the one who played hockey.
Right.
She's the one who's, like, completely immersed in it,
Yeah.
probably because of Shane. She's the one who propels his career forward. She's the one who feels the deep sense of, I wanna say, shame and sadness when she realizes she doesn't know her kid at all.
Mhm.
And these
Mhm.
are all fears that I have,
Yeah.
from my own background, and sort of straddling these 2 worlds of being Indian and being American and then being Indian American, but you carry those lessons with you. You carry that mentality of an immigrant coming in, and you need to push, you need to go forward, you need to be the best of the best. In Shane's case, it was hockey. In my case, it was education. Like there was no second, there's only first. And
Right.
all of that was amazing because maybe that's what I needed to live my potential. But then on the flip side, as Una might be feeling, you're like, at what cost did that occur? And I just feel that very keenly with my own kids who are young, but all the time I'm like, "Oh my god, am I pushing? Am I not pushing enough?" I feel like I can never feel comfortable,
Yeah.
like, where I land, and a lot of that is the family generational way that I was growing up, but also trying to create something softer for my kids. I love the way you describe your mom and watching the show with her. And, in some ways, I don't think I've ever shown my honest, true self with my mom, ever.
Mhm.
She's
Mm.
just not ready to meet me as myself. She's
Mm.
meets me as the version of Anusha that is Indian enough to still interact with her, and I don't want that for my kids. Like, I
Right.
want them to be their their most honest self and not put on a facade, and so I'm sure this was a lot of what was going on with Yuna, and then she
Mhm.
ends up still at the same place that probably she and I both feared, and you're like, "Oh my god, is that the thing that they're gonna be talking about in therapy?" Like,
Mm.
it's a kind of a joke, right? But, like, you're like, "My god, is this the misstep where they, like, start hiding themselves from me?"
Mm.
That's the part about Yuna that feels really relatable to me on a
Yeah.
very deeply personal level, is that I'm constantly sort of weighing that balance in my head. And in that scene where she's contemplating his coming out to her and saying, "We suspected it could be the case." And if she were me, I'd be like, if we suspected, and like, what was it about me that made him not tell me?
Right.
What did I do wrong? And then that's where I live on a daily basis. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not just you, girl.
Yeah, that's a
I think
very relatable
yeah,
mom
it's a very
feeling.
relatable mom feeling for sure. And I'm sure you feel it more because of your own relationship with your own mom. Yuna feeling like a failure, even though she thought she did everything right, is definitely all moms.
Yeah,
Like
right?
all
You're
moms,
like, "Oh my god."
hashtag all moms or most moms anyway.
I know we focus a lot about Yuna in this coming
Mhm.
out scene because it is one of the key moments of her arc in the show,
Mhm.
but in the beginning, we were talking about invisible labor, and sort of the mental load that mothers take for the family, and I think it's such a double-edged sword because you you end up taking up all this guilt,
Mhm.
when things go wrong, but you're also the reason the family is propelled forward, right? Like, thinking about
Yeah.
Yuna, um, you know, David, I think I said, David is the one who plays hockey,
Yeah.
but he's kind of a very typical kind of yin yang that happens is like dad is low key and the fun one, right? Like he has the
Mhm.
time to talk about YouTube and all of that. And we don't know very much about their relationship or what their partnership looks like.
Yeah.
But
Right, right, right.
it feels like that labor that she does, that which is essentially driving Shane's career, how much work that must have taken. Like, think about your own kid, like, in sports,
Mhm.
how much effort it takes as a child for that to happen, and then to then understand that the level of skill is more than normal, and then to figure out what to do with it. I mean, that's a lot of work, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If you think about Yuna having this like dual responsibility
Mhm,
as a parent and the manager, right? Like she's deeply intertwined in his career and as you said, like she's started from the time he was a baby, right? And she propelled his career into the future. She supports him, she advocates for him, she protects him, and like she literally like creates the empire around him. He's not doing that. His job is to play
mm-mm.
and play well, right? Like her job is to manage all the relationships around his contract deals, his endorsement, and everything else. Like she loves him so much, but she also manages him. And like I don't you remember that part where
I know
Shane
what
said
you're
like I
gonna
don't want to be
say.
managed. You knew it,
I
yeah.
knew.
Like when he's like I don't want to be managed this weekend, right? Because like
Yeah.
regardless the fact that they have this beautiful, very supportive relationship and like obviously they do. Shane loves her so so much.
Mhm.
Even when David catches them, his I think deepest pain is, "Oh my god, my mom." Right? Remember like
Mm.
my mom, like
Yeah.
what's going to happen there, right? And she's not only supporting him emotionally, which she has, but she's also supporting him by carrying this invisible mental load of his
Mhm.
career too, right? And constantly in the background, I'm managing schedules, expectations, his public image and whatever.
Mhm.
And also like anticipating any problem that may arise.
Mm. Mhm.
Right? Which is we
Yeah.
do as moms. Like we do that
Right.
as moms. And that's like that mental, invisible, emotional labor that we carry.
And in the spaghetti eating scene, you see she takes it on for Ilya too. You know what I mean? She's like,
Yes.
"Okay, now you're mine too," and
Yeah.
she's planning for him too. And I really, really, really hope we get to see that relationship flourish
Yeah.
in the next season because Ilya hasn't had a mom present in his
Yeah.
life for a very long time.
Right, because there is this complete opposite experience between Ilya and
Mm,
Shane, right? Ilya's experience with motherhood, we know, he grows up with like this absence and emotional loss, whereas Shane grows up with like almost like intense
mhm,
emotional support, like
mhm,
maybe even too much sometimes, because
mhm,
he's so worried about how she's going to react to everything that he has done. And it makes the contrast between kind of fascinating too, right? Shane fears disappointing people and Ilya fears losing people. Shane always has someone who helps at least carry that emotional weight around him. And then Ilya carries that himself. Like he knows
mhm,
he has no one else. Their identities are so different because
mhm,
of their moms.
mm. Moms
So
are key. Moms are key.
like I'm a sports mom. My son plays soccer. My daughter does jujitsu, and There's a lot. Obviously, my husband's always there. He's the one that's, like, taking them and driving them and whatever else, but there's a lot of, like, managing all of that around,
Mhm.
and I'm not raising an elite athlete either,
Mhm.
so I'm not trying to get, sponsorships or whatever else, but if that were the case, I would be the one doing that. I know that for
Mhm.
a fact,
Yeah,
so
for
go
sure.
Yuna. Yeah.
Go Yuna. Sometimes I feel like in the managing mode, you lose sight of, what is that saying? The forest for the trees, right? Like,
Mm,
um, sometimes you're just so enmeshed in the scheduling and then this
yeah.
thing and the next thing and what's the next step that you forget that's the mental load thing, right? Because,
Mhm.
like, who has time to do all of that and also be like, let me take stock of the entire journey of motherhood and see where I
Yeah.
am. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very hard balance, I think, when your kid says something and it, like, stops you in your tracks and you're like, oh, wow. Like, I was paying attention to the wrong thing. Like, my kid needed
Mm.
this, something simple, and I was planning.
And that's partly why parents miss things too, right?
Mhm,
And that is true for everything, not just sports, like managing their academics, right?
mhm,
We all know that the school calendar most of the time falls on the mom, right? Every freaking dress up day, every holiday, every volunteering role, homeroom, classroom
mhm,
parents, mostly moms, right? Like
mhm,
in education, moms are more involved than dads. It's a generalization, but it is one for a reason. But because of that, you're right, we do end up sometimes missing very crucial
mhm,
parts of their emotional
mhm,
and social, perhaps, struggles, because we're so focused on, like, these are the things that need to be done. Everything becomes, like, secondary, which is bad.
mhm.
It's not good. But there's only so much we can do, and there's only so much of us to
Right.
give. There's a
Mhm,
YouTuber named Jeffrey Conway, and he asks anytime he has celebrities on or anything, he will always ask, "Now that you've played this character and you've embodied this
mhm.
character, what would you tell your character if you could, or what advice would you give them?" And he asks the cast of Heated Rivalry, all of them, the same question. And he asked Christina Chang, and so her response was, "I would tell Yuna that he's gonna be okay, you're gonna be okay. Forgive yourself. It's just gravy from here on out." And I would like to give I would like to give her advice for Yuna to all the moms, like,
Mhm.
forgive yourself for these types of things that you, in many, 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 many ways, have no control over. Yes, Yuna said she thinks she failed in this, like, way, but she's existing within this hockey culture and in this world, and this was a miss, like a big miss, but also, it's not all on her, like, it's
Mhm.
not all on the mom,
Mm. It's not all on mom.
It's not
My
all on
god,
you,
right?
Anusha. Like, you're not the only one that
Right.
influences your child, you
Right.
know?
David, what are you doing? I
Yeah,
mean, he's
David.
he's a good
Are you
dad
crying
too.
out there too?
Right. Right.
No one
That
came out to David
is
either.
yeah, he didn't come out to David either, right? No,
Exactly.
that's very true. What a perfectly mom thing to feel like the
Yeah.
failure when there's also another partner. And you're right. It's not failure is the fear, but it's not the reality. You're right. There was something about the environment that kept Shane from divulging this aspect of himself. It doesn't mean he was dishonest about every aspect of himself. You could see how comfortable they were as a family and how much love there was. And then there's repair too. This is like my brain talking and not my heart.
Mhm,
It's hard for
mhm.
moms, and I'm sure you feel that too, but
Mm,
there's the repair and she immediately starts repairing,
right.
starting with
Exactly.
saying, this is not you. You have done nothing to apologize. This is something about me, and I'm sorry. That was a huge repair. I
Yeah.
mean, you could just see the tension
Yeah.
drain out of Shane at that moment. He needed her to say that, and he forgave her.
He
And I would,
really needed her to say that, you're right, you could
yeah,
see it in his
and
face.
yeah, he needed her to say that, and she gave it to him. She gave
Yeah.
him exactly what he needed when he came out. And that's why it's a beautiful coming out scene.
Yeah, and listen, I'm sure she's gonna process this for a very long time, even though
Yeah.
he forgives her,
Yeah.
That's a big big thing to just, like, let
Yeah.
go, you know?
Yeah.
It just reminds me of something, like, so silly, like, last night, we're having a really nice time, we watched a movie, and it got late, so it was almost midnight, and I was alright, like, I was talking to my kid, and I was like, "Go take a shower. We're tired, and we just wanna get to bed," and at that point, everybody's emotions start running high too, especially mine when I get tired and very cranky, and so my 12-year-old is just, like, stalling, and finally, like, I lose it a little bit, and I yell, and I'm like, "Just get in the shower," and I yell at him,
Mhm.
and I could hear in his voice, he starts to tear up. He's like, "I was just gonna ask," like, apparently he was just gonna ask for something, and
Mhm.
I was just like, "Enough," and I heard it in his voice, like, cracking, and that killed me, and I right away ran to him, and I was like, "I'm so sorry," like, immediate repair, like, I'm so sorry I yelled," like, and I hugged him, and, like, I felt his body just, like, relax because
Mhm.
it got real tense,
Mhm.
and sad, like, the sadness took over real quick, and I felt his body relax immediately, and I'm like, "Whew, okay," like, saved by my own action slash horrible yelling at my kid, but we all have that moment,
Mhm.
you and I talk about it all the time, like, we yell at our kid, and then we feel awful about it because
Mhm.
we know we're the adults, we should have been regulating our own
Mhm.
emotions better, but just like Christina Chang says, "Forgive yourself, it's just
Mhm.
gonna be gravy from now on." So,
Just gravy.
yeah.
Okay, so you had that happen with your son. I want to share something that happened with my kid. So it was a rough morning. Everyone had to get to things very early. And my daughter is a lot like me in that she is not an early riser and
Ooh.
very grumpy, like a little gremlin, which I also am a gremlin in the mornings. And I was so overwhelmed. I just came back to bed and just lay down and went under the covers. And my son came up and just lay next to me. And he just said something like, I get it. You're frustrated, Emma. It was so
Hmm.
sweet because obviously we do something similar,
Yeah, yeah.
to him, right? And it was really
Mm.
sweet because I mean, it was not a great mom moment to be
Yeah.
comforted by your child, but then I thought, "Okay, maybe in some way created an environment where my child has learned those strategies from us," you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So, like, you're great. All's well.
Yeah, that's it. It's
That's
all
it.
gravy from here.
You've
I'm
done
done.
you've done your job. Like
Yeah,
like, hand
it's
hats off
done.
to you. Yeah, you're good to go.
Good to go, good to
Good
go.
to go. Alright.
So, moms, complicated moms and heated rivalry, I think in so many ways, so relatable to all moms because even if we haven't walked those exact circumstances, those emotions, feeling depressed, feeling anxious, feeling overwhelmed, feeling too soft for the harshness of the world, feeling like you've failed your kid, even though you've done all you could those are just really human emotions that, yeah, you could say all parents relate to, but there's a very distinct mom flavor to those emotions, I
Mhm.
think,
Yeah.
and those feelings.
Well, listen, and that's our Mother's Day episode.
And that's our Mother's Day
You're
episode.
welcome.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. You're welcome,
But it's
fandom.
all gravy from here, moms. All gravy.
Yeah, everything is gonna be
Yep.
just fine.
You're doing a great job,
You're
moms.
doing a great
All the
job,
moms that need to hear it, including us.
including us. Anusha,
Mhm.
you're a great mom, and your
Diana,
children
you're
are
the
lucky to have
best
you.
one.
All right, let's
Right.
talk about our sunshine.
Yes, let's talk about our sunshine. Do we have the same sunshine this week, potentially?
I
I
don't
don't know.
know, do we? Why don't you start, and I'll let you know if it's also my sunshine.
Okay, so our beautiful friend Tracy gave us this amazing bracelet that is sunshine yellow and has
Hmm.
an inscription that reads, Everyone deserves sunshine. And it was the sweetest thing ever.
She got it for us when we hit 50,000 downloads, right?
Hmm.
But we are now at 70,000, so I hope
Hmm.
she's thinking of another present at this point,
Yeah, a
honestly.
second
Yeah.
one is
Yeah.
due. It's due so that it can be our sunshine for next week, maybe?
Right, exactly. Yeah,
So,
Tracy,
Tracy, if
we
you're
need it. We
listening,
need more stuff.
more we need more stuff.
We're running out of sunshine, Tracy.
We're running out of sunshine gifts, exactly. So, it is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Tracy. We love
Thank
you.
you, Tracy. Well, that is my sunshine too, so I'm just gonna I'm just going to attach myself to that one. So thank you very much. Next week on Everyone Deserves Sunshine, we're talking about hockey, and we're actually going to talk about hockey this time.
Finally.
I know you're so excited.
I'm so
subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you want to say hi to the girls in the crease, find us on Instagram, Facebook, or Threads at Everyone Deserves Sunshine.
Or email us at everyonedeservesunshine@gmail.com. New episodes drop on Mondays.
See you then.